This is the Dictionary series, where we learn to understand at a deeper level that our words have meanings and can alter the way we interact with and even view the world at large. It's your girl Kizzy, and I thank you for joining me. Well, hello and welcome back to the Dictionary series. It's your girl Kizzy, and today's word is going to be shame. As part of this dictionary series, I am here to really allow you to understand the meaning that you give to words and the meaning that these words can have and how they can impact your life. So let's go ahead and read the dictionary definition of what shame is. And then we'll get into it, okay? So, shame. A painful feeling of losing the respect of others because of having done something wrong, i.e., I felt shame after I yelled at my little sister. Loss of honor, disgrace. The thief brought shame to her family. Something to regret or feel sorry about. It's a shame you missed the party. To bring shame to disgrace to someone. The actions of a few shame the whole school. To force someone into doing something by making that person ashamed. Nadira's hurt look shamed Sonia into apologizing. Shame, shamed, shaming. It's interesting that this says to force someone into doing something by making that person ashamed, because that's something that I feel like I've been noticing within this world, within this realm, that we can use shame, and shame has been used to ourselves, but even within others, right? To others, that shame has been used as a way to transform or change somebody, right? So it's almost like if I can shame them enough, if I can make them feel bad enough for being, saying, thinking, feeling, believing in what they believe in, then they'll change, right? They won't say it, then they won't be it, right? And so shame has definitely been used as a negative way to get people, as a negative use rather, to get people to change, right? And we even do that with ourselves, right? We try to shame ourselves into changing. But really, what I've learned and what I'm learning is that we don't shame ourselves through changing. We can't shame ourselves in order to really create the growth and elevation we're seeking, right? It has to be from a more grounded space. It has to be from a more whole perspective, right? And so there's a difference in healthy shame and toxic shame, right? And so healthy shame is I did something that was not of the highest, most loving good, or I did something that was not kind, or I did something that was a mistake, right? And I feel shame for that, right? It's healthy to recognize when you feel shame, you feel bad, right? When you feel like it says here, regret or feel sorry about, right? It's normal to feel that level of shame. But it gets into an unhealthy, toxic shame when we shame ourselves for simply existing, right? When we shame ourselves for simply being, when we shame ourselves for who we are, not the things that we've done, right? Amen? And so it's like, there's a difference in shaming yourself for being who you are, right? I am shameful. I am ashamed, right? I am this thing that should not be looked at. I am this thing that is wrong. I am this thing that doesn't deserve respect innately, right? As a belief, versus I did this, I fucked up, right? I made a mistake and I feel bad for it. I'm going to take XYZ steps. I'm going to change. I'm going to recognize this and do this instead, right? There's a difference in those two, right? One shames your entire being and one is feeling shame, right? So one is being shame and one is feeling shame. And I think that's an important thing to know, right? You can feel shame, but you can also exist and be in shame. So even words like, I should have done this, you should think like this, you should be like this, I should be like this, right? I should have said this, I shouldn't think like that, I shouldn't feel like this. Those are shaming words, right? Those are shaming words, and I've learned that as well on this journey, right? There are words that elicit and affirm shame, and there are words that do the opposite, right? So the opposite of should, right? Could have would be if you say, well, how do I feel about what happened, right? It's looking inward and not focusing on what you didn't do that was wrong in a way that is negating or minimizing what you did. It's like, think of shame as you pointing at yourself and ostracizing and blaming and shaming yourself, versus standing next to yourself and saying, hey, how do you feel about what happened? I know that that was hard for you. I know that you recognize this and that. How do you feel about what happened? Are you shameful, or are you feeling ashamed? Well, why do you feel ashamed? How can we release this shame, right? How can we expand past this, right? I feel like being shame is not rooted in asking questions. It's not rooted in curiosity. It's not rooted in openness and in curiosity. It's rooted in definitive definition, right? Dictionary series, right? It's rooted in definition. It's rooted in this. It is this, right? It's rooted in this restriction. It's rooted in So I think that's also a good way to tell. I was trying to think of this example that I saw, but I think that's something like it, right? So, shaming is a shoulda, but then, like, where you really connect with yourself and build a closer bond to yourself, right, is where you get curious and you ask questions and you act like it is, right? But you act like it's you and you against the thing, right? You and you against the behavior, you and you against the projections, you and you against XYZ. It's not the thing against you, and you're separate. You know what I mean? So the root of shame, I've learned as well from the phenomenal Till Swan, is taking things personally. And so, whoopsie. And so I want to show you what that looks like and why we can get into this habit of feeling shame and taking things personally, and how we can heal from our shame and release that. So, the root of shame is taking things personally. I'm like talking into the mic. So, the root of shame is TTP. Taking things personally, right? And what happens when we take things personally? Well, if you hear sounds, excuse the noise, my niece and nephew are here, so it's a party, it's a blast, it's a time. But so, shame is taking things personally. So why do we take things personally? When we take things personally, what are we doing? Did I already say this? Maybe. But we are internalizing, right? So, shame, internalization. When we internalize things, what does that mean, right? So if you say, you shouldn't feel this way, and I internalize that I shouldn't, which again, shame trigger word, that I shouldn't be feeling this way, if I internalize that I shouldn't be feeling how I'm feeling, what does that mean that I took that on from you? If I took on that you're telling me how I shouldn't feel, then I am lacking boundaries. Because if I had boundaries, I simply would understand and recognize, no, it's not that I shouldn't feel this way. It's okay for me to feel this way, right? I can feel this way. It's safe for me to feel how I feel. But because I took it personally, internalized it, and I lack boundaries, it's eliciting this feeling of shame, of wrong, of bad within me about how I feel. So, if I lack boundaries, what does that mean about me? Right? Because what do you need to have boundaries? To have boundaries, well, you need to honor, love, respect, right? Which is funny because it says here shame with the definition, it says a painful feeling of losing the respect of others because of having done something wrong, right? So if I lack boundaries, it means that I lack honor, love, respect, and knowing of self. Because if I knew myself, I would not lack boundaries, right? But because I don't know myself, because I don't love myself, because I don't respect myself enough, whatever the case may be, right? There's so many ways in which we can lack boundaries. It's probably a mix of all of them, right? A mix of not loving yourself, not respecting yourself, not honoring yourself, not knowing yourself. So if I don't have all these things, or I'm not solidified, right, grounded in them, then what does that lead to? Confusion. So, I'm sorry, I hope you can hear me. So that leads to confusion, right? So when we're confused, what does confusion lead to? Does confusion give you a clear perspective? No. So confusion then leads to a distortion of yourself, an unclear perspective of yourself. And if you lack clarity on yourself, on who you are, right, on what you deserve, right, on what you like and what you don't like, what you want and what you don't want, then inevitably you will take things personally and create shame within. Shame will be created within inevitably. And so to free yourself of shame is to really know yourself, right? Love yourself. Understand what it means to honor you. Understand what it means to be your own person, right? And understand the difference between what is toxic shame and what is healthy shame. So again, just so we can get this down, right? Because I really do want you to understand this perspective. I think it's very helpful. Shame comes from taking things personally, especially as children, right? If we're shamed by the adults in our life, if we are projected onto as children, we automatically take things personally because we don't have the differentiation, right? But things have changed now. As an adult, as a teenager, right? You have the opportunity to expand past that. You have the opportunity to change and transform your shame. So how do you change and transform your shame? Well, how did you get there, right? From childhood, from whatever point, right, you're looking at this, you took something personally because you're not born with shame, right? You're born free, but then things are, like I said, pointed at you, pointed onto you, and you take them on. So you took things personally because you internalized. You internalized because you didn't have boundaries. You didn't know what boundaries were. You didn't know standards. You didn't know you could have them. You didn't know all those things. You didn't have boundaries. You don't have boundaries because maybe you weren't aware as well, right? But because you don't have boundaries because you are not honoring yourself, right? You don't love yourself. You don't respect yourself. You don't know yourself, or you don't even know what it means to do or have those things, right? Which inevitably would lead to you being confused. If you don't know yourself, love yourself, respect yourself, how can you have boundaries? How can you establish what works for you and what doesn't? Which inevitably would lead to a lack of clarity and distortion of who you are. Which leads us back to shame. And so the way to rid yourself of shame is to get to know yourself, right? It is to do the work to understand that you can have boundaries. What are boundaries? That you can have standards. What are standards? That you can feel, think, be, act, believe how you believe, and you don't have to be like everyone else, right? To relieve yourself of shame is to validate yourself and who you are. To take radical responsibility and accountability. Yeah, I made mistakes. Yeah, I did this. Yeah, I did that. And it's okay for me to feel shame because I do regret doing XYZ. I do feel like that was not the best thing to do, whatever the case may be. But I am not shameful because I can always change. I can always grow. I can always become anew. I can always transform. In toxic shame, like I said, it's very restrictive. We don't give ourselves space to grow, to expand. But healthy shame says, it's me and you. So how are you feeling? What's up? Do you feel like you shouldn't feel that way? Or is that how you really feel? Do you feel like you really shouldn't think that way? Or is that how you really think? Right. Relieving yourself of shame is knowing that you are valuable and that you deserve to exist in who you really are. That you are love. That you deserve love. You're worthy of love. And I've had to learn this for myself as well. I felt a lot of shame in my life. But I've really felt shame. Like I am ashamed. But I'm not ashamed. Just because people don't understand me, right? Just because people don't get me, just because I'm not for everyone, just because I'm different, just because I'm unique, just because XYZ, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't mean I am ashamed. No, I am not ashamed. Say it with me. I am not ashamed. I don't hear you. I am not ashamed. I can feel shame, but I am not ashamed. What? I can feel shame, but I am not ashamed. You are not ashamed. And you are worthy of not being shamed, but rather being helped to be better, right? To grow, to heal. You are worthy of, and this is also part of healing your shame, compassion and care and kindness, of being seen, heard, recognized. I feel like in shame too is a lack of being seen, heard, and recognized for who you truly are, right? Again, the knowing, honoring, loving, respecting. And I know that that happens because I've also taken on other people's shame, right? I've internalized their projections. Oh, you're stupid. Am I stupid, or do I just have a different type of knowledge? Am I just not academically inclined like everybody else in this world is supposed to be? So I took that on for so long and I said, I'm so stupid. Like I am stupid. I feel so bad because I am stupid. But I only took that on because I lacked boundaries. I lacked knowing myself, honoring myself, seeing myself. And now that I see myself and I'm not confused, right? Like I said, I'm not distorted on who I am. I'm like, you know what? I actually am very smart. So it's really about relieving yourself of shame. It's really about owning and knowing and stepping into who you are and how you want to feel. And releasing all the things that try to make you feel like who you are. Your being is a shame. It is shameful. It is not. And I'm going to bring in God's love. Thank you, God. Amen. Because God's love is unconditional. God's not going to shame you. God's not going to say, oh yeah, you deserve to be shamed into changing. Oh yeah, I'm going to shame you for being who you are, uniquely as you are, as I made you. No. Shame is a human thing that people made because there's so many different people and some people can't handle people's differences. And so they project insecurity instead of acknowledging that they are actually feeling inferior and insecure, right? So you are not shameful. You can feel shame, but you are not shame. Don't claim embodying shame as your being, because it's not you. Shame is not you. Say, shame is not me. Shame is not me. We have more control than we think, than we allow ourselves to really take credit for. But that's part of healing the shame, right? Taking that accountability and responsibility for how you feel, for how you think of yourself, for what goes on in your mind, and seeking the help, the resources, the videos, the people, the thought processes, the patterns, right? That will help you get out of that. Because shame makes us feel very alone and down and less than. But we are not any of those things. You also want to surround yourself with people who are not going to try to shame you into changing. They're not going to try to shame you for being who you are. You should be like this. You should think like this. You want to be around people who make you feel good about who you are. At the very least, if they don't make you feel good about who you are, they uplift and encourage and support your growth and healing and being better. They're not like, oh yeah, well you should be like this. And you're not like this, so well you should think like this. Well you should feel like this. Well you should act like this. Well you should know this. They're like, okay, it's okay you don't know. Okay, it's okay you feel that way. It's okay you think that way. It's okay you believe that way. Even if they believe differently, they will have those boundaries of respect for themselves to say, hey, it's okay. We don't have to believe the same. We don't have to think the same. We don't have to feel the same, etc. So be mindful of what you're taking on. And understand that you are not shame. You may feel shame, but you are not shame. And shame is not stuck within you, and you do not have to stay stuck in that space. But releasing yourself and relieving yourself of shame does require letting go of what you're holding on so tightly, of that confine and comfortability of living in shame, of being shame, of self-forgiveness, of patience with yourself, right? Because the process to owning, loving, respecting, having boundaries, it is a process, right? I didn't wake up like this overnight, and I'm still healing shame. I'm still letting go of shame. And so it's about really just continuously going through the motions, going through the progress, feeling, healing, writing, feeling, healing, writing, rewriting, feeling, healing, writing, rewriting, reframing. And it's in that you get going and you're like, oh shit, I don't feel like I'm such shame anymore. And then you start running faster and you're like, oh my god, wait, I was never ashamed as a person. I was always just feeling shame. I was just taking things personally. I just didn't have boundaries. I can be my own person. Yeah. And then you start running and rising. So, that is today's dictionary word, shame. And I hope that this video helped, healed, and gave to you in some way. If you enjoyed this video, if this helped you, if this affirmed you, confirmed some things for you, taught you something, like, comment, and subscribe. And thank you for supporting me and watching me. And I'll catch you next time on the dictionary series. Peace be with you. Love you.